Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone, to our attendees, and to our guest in particular. My name is Valeria. I'm from the webinars team here at European Guanxi, and today I'll be your moderator for this incredible event. Today I'm here to introduce you this event, which will be an occasion for us to learn and discuss about China's innovation ecosystem from the unique perspective offered by the STAR market and the strategic insights obtainable from it, the history and the current functioning of China's IP exchange, and also some IP-related business models that will be presented during this webinar. Let me just start by thanking our speaker, first of all, to be with us today and also for having accepted our invitation. Our speaker that I'm introducing right now has an incredible CV. Dr. Chung is a cross-culture, cross-disciplinary legal professional. He worked in international cities for global companies, including Goldman as its executive director, and then Apple's strategic partner as its general counsel, leading the legal IP department of over 100 professionals from diversified regions and countries. He has obtained his GD from UCLA, a Ph.D. in economic law from Peking University, an MBA and a Bachelor of Science in Chemical Engineering from National Taiwan University, IMOT from the MIT Sloan Fellow MBA program. He's an attorney at law in the US, California, and China, and a patent agent in China. He holds the security professional certification in China. And with his 15 years working experience in Greater China, Dr. Chung is dedicated to IP innovative strategies and enthusiastic about exploring values of ancient Chinese culture through IP mining and technology innovation. Thank you once again for having accepted our invitation, and I leave the floor to our speaker. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Valeria, for the introduction. Just touch base in case if you cannot hear me clearly, I would like to say hello to the audience today. We might have audience from different parts of the world. I think some of those attendants from European, some from US, and also some of them from mainland China. So we all speak different languages. So English probably not our native tongue. So I will try to speak slower so as to make sure we can have an effective discussion. Okay, if that is all right, I would like to bring up the slide. Could anyone see this slide? Can anyone send me a message saying, okay, got the slide?
Yes, we can see them.
Okay, thank you. Then I'm going to get started. The topic we are going to share today is anatomy of China's innovation ecosystem. And we'll take two components of it as example, the STAR market and the IP exchange, okay? And before we enter into the discussion today, I would like to spend a few minutes about the background or why we want to discuss this topic, okay? Or we said the methodology, our perspective about these two topics. The key reason is we need a new way to observe. Everybody needs a new way to observe. Why? As you can feel, no matter where you are, the US-China trade wars impact us, especially I think most of us are professional. We do international business or take important role in our organization. It's hard to take side. Either you join or you compete, but you just cannot wait and see to see what's going on between the US and China. And if we look into the reason why US and China has this kind of trade conflict, or we call it trade war, usually we ignore the key reason is the technology domination. People can talk about like ideology or some tariff issue, but it's not a key. The key always the technology domination. What does it mean? Taking, for example, the 5G, AI, big data, or even quantum computing. Okay, because China is growing very fast in this area. If you're in Europe, you understand the 5G standard or the 5G new system was almost ready by Huawei to offer. But started like 2 years ago, if the 5G system is all offered by Huawei everywhere in this world, from US point of view, it's going to feel some threatening about security issue or national security issue, all that about technology, right? So the bottom line, the key things about the US trade war that impact you and me is derived from the technology competition. However, very few information is available to us to understand about China. Okay, about China, what does it mean? That means if US tech spend a lot of effort to confront or to compete with China, what is going on in China? What technology development is going to have, or what kind of new innovation activity is going on within China? It's hard for us to get those information for two reasons. The first reason is media always take side, whether it's the media from Washington, DC, Wall Street, or from Beijing, okay? It's just become harder and harder for us to get those genuine information. Another key reason is most of those information are available in Chinese, not in English, right? So even you put this website, put this newspaper in front of you, it's in Chinese. It's harder for us, for those international professionals, to understand Chinese and get the insight from those news reports. In other words, under the US-China trade war, we get impacted. We want to understand the source of this confrontation. We want to get the genuine parts of this trade war and to see how we choose our standing. If there is a crystal ball, if there is a magic, the best thing is like taking the temperature of human body, right? The COVID-19 human body is a complicated system. It's hard for anyone to tell whether this individual is infected or not. But taking the temperature is a quick and easy way as the first step to check. But it's probably too easy because this human body, like economic body, is a complicated system. If we want to understand China's innovation ecosystem, we probably need something more sophisticated, a systematic approach. That, from our point of view, will be, we look at the IP, intellectual property. Okay, because every innovation activity, every technology development, at some point will be crystallized into intellectual property. Either it's patent, it's trade secret, this kind of, we call the legal right, protect under the law, okay? And from this crystallization, all private party or state party will have the chance to utilize this IP to develop this kind of business model and create more value. So if we may observe how China or in China's economy system create IP, use IP, and manage the relevant risk of IP, then it will be easy and accurate way to understand the innovation activity in China. So to choose the criteria, to choose a good index, it must have three criteria. First one, to all of us, it's better to be English, right? Or even it's Lammer. Lammer is easy to understand. English, because the language is easy to understand. Second criteria is this observation, this index, this measurement should be close related to the technology development. And the third one, it should be simple, but not too simple. It should be certain level of depth to reflect the current situation in China. So from my personal observation or my experience, I come up with a set of observation points that could easily and efficiently help any professional in any parts of the world to look into China and obtain their own perspective about the innovation activity in China, which is the source of the current US war, the technology domination. And today we are going to introduce two of them. So let me into the first observation point, which is the STAR market. So what is the STAR market? STAR stands for Scientific Innovation Board, which is a sub-board under Shanghai Stock Exchange. Shanghai Stock Exchange has several boards, but one of them is called the STAR Board. We nickname STAR Market. We can easily understand it as China's counterpart of US NASDAQ. Basically, this board of this market is focused on those high growth rate, those very potential with innovation, scientific developments company, which probably do not have very impressive financial data to go into the main board or to seek for financing from other capital market. Okay, and in China, the STAR board is particular, especially focused on IP or patent strengths, their strengths or advantage in patent or trade secret, this kind of technology achievement. Okay, and because of this spatial focus of STAR market, it's provide a very valuable window for us to look into China's activity, to look into what is going on in China's innovation ecosystem. It's offer rich information which is difficult to get or otherwise unavailable before. Okay, so what insight we probably get from the STAR market? I just try to name a few. The first one, the investment hot zone. What is the investment hot zone? For example, your friends in Italy ask you, okay, I heard you are studying China economy or China innovation activity. Then could you tell me what part of the industry is most attractive or has more investment opportunity in China? Well, then it depends, right? But STAR market offer a very quick, I won't say dirty, but quick, efficient way for you to look into those activities by simply looking at the trading volume of different sectors of the industry. We'll do some demo in the next page, but just give you the idea first here. Okay, where the trading volume is high, that means the capital, the market is look at this particular sector. And where the money is, it should be easy to find an opportunity to collaborate, to investment, or to do some financial activity. So we call it investment hot zone. We can use several ways to identify investment hot, but an easy and quick way to look into the STAR board to see which stock or which industry obtain the highest trading volume in the past months or past quarter. Observation number 2 is the contemporary issue. That means the most hot issue happening in China. If you ever follow up news in China, I bet you know a company called Ant Group, 蚂蚁金服, okay? Ant is a subsidiary of Alibaba, Jack Ma's company. About a few months ago, Ant is going to get a list in the STAR market because it's called a fintech, use new big data, AI technology to decide the credits of each individual and offer micro loans, small loans to those individuals who are not available to obtain loan from the traditional bank. It's a new model, very advanced, but it probably go across the red line and now get some penalty from the government. This news in the few months has been hot topic in China, or even in Asia, or in the financial market globally. Okay, and this is where taking place. The STAR market is where it's taking place. In other words, if you follow in STAR market's news or update, you will be easily follow those most important issues in China. Okay, Observation number 3. Stock market is a new board, so there will be a lot of regulatory change. Regulatory change means update in regulation or regulation change in law. Why they need such change? Because the government need to take over, need to encounter new issue, happen in the society, happen in the economy. Okay, we call it legislative intent. I believe some of you major in law, so you don't understand what I mean. But if you don't, you can just look at the title of those news release from the stock market. You basically look at the title, you will know what are the focus of the government now is taking toward the financial market in China, toward the innovation activity in China. Give you an example, like a few months ago, the stock market start to have regulation discussion on deregistration, which means you get on the stock board, but later on need to take you off. It's sort of reflecting the situation that the market is a little bit hit for the stock market, and the government expecting more qualified, more quality company to get listed. So that legislative intent show how the government position, untold position, but you can refer from the change of the regulation. And then there are a lot more information, very rich information you can obtain from the stock market. Let me just give you very practical demonstration how you or myself may use this as an observation point, looking into China's innovation activity. The first one, very quick, you just go to the website. What do I mean by go to the website? Go to the website listed here, starsse.com, COMCN. And in most of the officials' website in China, there is a click between Chinese English. You just switch the button to the English. So this particular page, I just downloaded from the their official website. You can see there's a panel, a very good panel that shows the current company, number of company listed in the stock market. And this one shows you the ratio and even the number of the company listed. So go back to the first question I asked everyone. If your friend asks you, what is the investment hot zone? Or if I go to China, can you tell me which company or which industry I should look after? Very easy, just look at this table, this chart. There are several industries, very dynamic, for a lot of energy. We call the new energy, biomedicine, new material, new generation IT. And which one occupy the most of the activities currently in China? You just can look in this table. This chart is the percentage. And even in the middle of the chart, you can see the total number and about like 1/5 of those hot companies are in the biomedicine area. And if you go to the website, this circle become interactive. You can point the circle, it jump up, some more information, so on and so forth. So that's demonstration how we utilize the stock market's information as the observation point looking into China's innovation ecosystem. Demonstration number 2, you can collect some report dedicated to this market. I used the report from our own group as an example, but you can also look into Reuters or even Bloomberg's news updates. You can just look into their website, do some quick search stock market. They regularly updates the things happening in market. Just like I said, we'll discuss the regulatory change, investment hot zone, or the contemporary hot issue being discussed in China's development. And the easy report like our own give a very like snapshot style information about the stock market. If you are interested, you can go to our website, ICT Tiger 2020, to have a look at this report as a demonstration. And if you are interested in this kind of report, I will invite you to join us. I will guide you how to generate this kind of report. It should be fairly easy. Okay, so that's about the first component. We call it stock market. We use stock market to observe investment hot zone, to understand the regulatory change and read the news about the stock market to understand the contemporary issue happening in China. Now we move to the IP exchange. Okay, what is IP exchange? There's some misunderstanding. IP exchange does not refer only to the transfer, buy, sale of the IP. IP exchange is what? Just like stock market, stock exchange, NYSE, New York Stock Exchange, right? And that's for security. But for IP assets such as patent, trademark, copyright, they also need some organized effort to facilitate, to promote the transfer, sale, or utilize of this exchange. So we call it IP exchange. It's a facility, it's an organized effort with certain rule to guide the exchange. Okay, but there are two things or two interesting aspects I have to point out when we mention about IP exchange. Okay, intellectual property, patent, trademark, copyright its value can only be reflected when you utilize this. Someone use this IP to generate real goods or service, then IP's value can be realized. And if the owner of IP does not have the operation facility, they don't have a factory, they don't have a restaurant, they don't have those equipment, they can license or sell those IP to those one who have, right? This is called the IP circulation or IP transaction. And in West country, in particular US, this kind of transaction or IP are usually carried out by private party. That means some very professional company. They research and put IP into pool and approach the potential buyer to make such transfer or give a license to those potential users called the licensee. Okay, but in China, for very interesting reason we'll mention in the next page, this kind of IP exchange are almost sponsored by the government. It's different route of development. Okay, another interesting aspect to mention is IP exchange actually is much harder to operate than stock exchange for two reasons. First one, the IPs usually are not standardized. Okay, so if you go to the stock exchange, the security in buy basically is piece of the share of the equity owned by the company according to company law or security law. However, if you go to the IP exchange, each piece of the information is not standardized, right? They have their own technology aspects. They have their own unique natures. So you need a distinctive domain knowledge to carry out your transaction. So these are the two special aspects about IP exchange. So what kind of information we can obtain by looking at the IP exchange in China? Okay, the first one, very interestingly, by looking at how or why IP exchange become so welcome, or there are so many of such IP exchange in China, you can get some insight. There's some historical reasons. No matter whether in the US or in Europe, I think you've heard about Chinese government to subsidize into patent application. Okay, this policy has been criticized, no matter domestically or globally. And in the past few years, they start to correct to rectify this over subsidization of patent. Okay, because it's generate a lot of useless patents. However, the resource already been poured in to create a patent. Now the patent owner are much eager to find a way to monetize it, to utilize it. Therefore, an IP exchange at this particular point could help them to find the value of their stock, their asset that they create during the past few years, where government give a lot of subsidization for them to apply patents. Try to liquidate the asset. It's a huge pressure. The second historic reason is the real estate economy. So probably different from US and different from Italy. If you may know, in China, then they use the right belongs to the government, right? When the real estate developer want to develop land, they need to apply and get approval to get a land transfer for this particular project. Okay. For example, if a real estate developer want to create or develop an industry park, industrial zone, then they will emphasize, okay, we are not only create IP, we create innovation, we also facilitate the exchange of the patent to find more value of the patent. So we'll also set up an IP exchange in our industrial park. Okay, that is a plus. Government will come to see more of that. So it's become a like must do when you try to do industrial park, when you try to win more government support, because people think that's the right way to utilize patents. And the second observation is most of the IP exchange are connected to China's national campaign. What do you mean by China national campaign? Which means China's most recent effort, either globally or domestically. You can just by looking at the title of the stock exchange in the past few months, newly built one, you understand, okay, the current focus is in this area. For example, a couple of years ago, many IP exchange are built under the name of Belt and Road. Okay, I don't know what this really means, but basically it means this exchange will be focused on patent and trademark copyright exchange with countries covered by the Belt and Road or like international aspects. And a few years ago, Chinese government started to focus on the military technology transfer into civil use. They call the military civil collaboration. Okay, this kind of practice has been, how can I say, very a routine practice in most of the countries, such as the US, right? They have the program that National Defense will give to MIT to develop technology. The military use some and the civil engineer will use some. And China also tried to learn from this kind of model called military civil collaboration. For this kind of collaboration, will be a lot of exchange of IP, patent, and know-how. So for a couple of time, you will see those new IP exchange will get a name of military and civil collaboration, which gives a very good observation window see into what is going on in China's innovation ecosystem. Observation number 3 from IP exchange is the new IP monetization model. What do you mean by monetization? Give an example is IP pledge. IP pledge is you pledge, you use your IP as collateral to get bank loan, okay? And because IP is intangible asset, we use the terms that legal can called pledge. An easy example would be like if you own like 100 on IBM's share in the European exchange market, it worth 100 or 1,000 dollars. You can pledge the security to a bank and borrow money from the bank, like 30 or even 40 dollars, like 30 to 40%. By this way, you do not lose your ownership to the security. But at the same time, you get some cash out from this asset that help you to complete other operational tasks. So by the same token, IP is kind of asset, right? That's why it could become a target in the IP exchange, like a security exchange. So in IP exchange, you can pledge your IP, your patent, your trademark, your copyright to bank and get some loans from the bank. There are so many new models happening in China, and like every quarter, I will receive new information how people use this kind of technique to come up with new service model. And this is where you can observe those dynamic or those development in China. So let's come some demo about how IP exchange offer, what kind of information they can offer. Well, but I need to remind you, many of these information about IP exchange are in Chinese, but fortunately, many of them have website I think most of the state provincial level or above IP exchange, they got a website. They're about 30 to 50. And there are probably more than 100 IP exchange in local level, which information of them are usually not on the website. But for 30 or 50, this kind of website, already a lot of information. You can just go to their website. And my trick is use Google Translation. The website in Chinese, you can quickly turn it into Italian or into like English to get a sense of the key information that is happening, like the title, the focus of the this IP exchange, or the what's new business model, new IP monetization model they are adopting. Or you can go to like research institute, like IC Tiger 2020. We have some report and article discussing, continuing to release this kind of information, this kind of summary table on our website. And then demonstration number 2, how to get insight from IP exchange in China. Remember, we talked about the IP monetization model, how to utilize IP. One approach is to use called IP pledge. And this chart shows the balance of the loan accumulated by the patent pledge in the past few years. You can see the trend is very robust. It grows very quickly. I think this year already billions of RMB of this kind of transaction are taking place in China. So by looking at the trend, you can at least get a sense of how China's IP business model, how IP transaction is becoming, how fast or in what direction. Okay, today's time is short, so I just give 2 examples, but let me give a very quick summary. Okay, US China will put us each one of in a very odd situation. We need more information looking into what kind of innovation activity is happening in China. And my suggestion to you is you obtain your own insight by looking at how intellectual property is created, is transferred or used in China. And then there are dozens of observation points. We introduced 2 of them today. The first one is stock market. Stock market is the window of China's innovation activity. You can look at the investment hot zone. You can read the news about the stock market, about the contemporary issue happening in China. You can read the regulatory change to understand the Chinese government intend how they want to couple with the current economic situation. Okay. Another important component in the China's ecosystem, innovation ecosystem, is IP exchange. And to look at the IP exchange, we understand why they are being built. What's the reason? What's the economic reason or social reason they are being built? Policy reason. And also by looking at the title of those new established IP exchange, you can see the direction the government's campaign, the effort is put into. And if you look into the IP exchange itself, you can see many new IP monetization model, IP commercialization model is taking place, those activities. Okay, basically that's my part of the sharing. We'll have Q&A section, but before entering into Q&A section, I would like to invite you to give some feedback of today's event, and also some feedback about this kind of presentation, how much you like it or you look forward to have more of it. And for those who participate in this survey, we'll have a free book to give you. It's called Innovation Crunching Tiger. Basically, we use the same framework in the Innovation Crunching Tiger. And it's the first edition. So fill out the survey form and looking forward to get more information or exchange from you too. Okay, so Valeria, that's the part from me, and looking forward to more discussion from you and from our audience.
Thank you once again for your a really interesting presentation and for having clarified some of my doubts about the star market. And before we start with the Q&A, today we are going to have a different Q&A than what we usually do. We're going to use a link that was shared by European Guanxi on the chat of the Zoom, but to give us time to write those questions, I'm going to start by asking to our speaker a question that was prepared by our webinars team, which is, the star market proposes a more market-driven approach to IPO. Do you think the more efficient market approach can be a determinant push for Chinese tech firms to establish themselves not only in their domestic market, but also globally? Thank you.
Yeah, Valeria, thank you. That's a very interesting question. Okay. So let me answer this way. We introduced the star market as the index or observation points for us to understand China better. But in real sense, how much it is helping the efficiency of the market, I probably take, well, of course, it will contribute because any stock exchange it offer more transparent information to investor. Like, for example, you can now go to the stock market's website to see those company information. For that sense, of course, it will increase the market efficiency. However, at the same time, I'd like to share with you, China still exercises tight control on capital flow, right? No matter it's inflow or outflow. In other words, for individual like yourself or like Domizena, you won't be able to invest in the stock market, right? So it's not going to utilize the capital market efficiently globally, but it provides information sources to exchange, so to facilitate this kind of information exchange, which is its advantage. To me, for those companies to go, they say go globally or to have more international collaboration, either investment in Italy, in Europe or American. What really matters is the culture. By means of culture is how those Chinese companies, their view towards words. What is the norm of communication and the expectation in the business? This culture, those sort of things, I think will be more important than the stock market alone.
Thank you so much for your response. So while we give further time for our attendees to complete the form, I have a question from Boris, who did not specify whether I should read it out loud or not. So okay, I'll read for him. He wants to ask to Dr. Chung what he thinks about IP exchange developments in China with the Web 3.0.
So what is Web 3.0? Could you elaborate a little bit?
If Boris could please.
Web 3.0 is a new stage of the web development than Web 2.0. Web 2.0 is mean a website, web page, but the IP exchange, and the Web 3.0 is mean when there are some keyword and then we'll have related website together. So it's Web 3.0 and try to develop well in the QR code and information science. So I want to ask, what do you think about the IP exchange development in China with the Web 3.0? Yeah.
So in case for myself, thank you for explanation. I just learned, and for those who are not in the area, my understanding is like more open environment for people to communicate is in the sense of Web 3.0. Okay. Interestingly, just like I mentioned, IP exchange in China, most of the relevant operation is in Chinese. So if the Web 3.0 have the facility like AI exchange for people can exchange idea quickly, I think that's possible nowadays, right? Even I think Google or Amazon have the headset. When I speak English, you can hear about Chinese. When I speak Chinese, you hear about English. But when that part of technology is mature, I will think it will be extremely welcome by those owners in China. Okay, the IP exchange in China, if people is not in the patent area, I need to say patent or trademark is called jurisdiction-based. What do you mean by jurisdiction-based? The same technology, the Chinese government can give you Chinese patent, but European Patent Office will give you European patent. In other words, a foreign party, a party from Italy, even they get a Chinese patent, it will not be very helpful to use in Italy. You see my point? However, at the same time, there's a bunch of patent portfolio. The owner get a multiple jurisdiction patent. For example, they apply the same technology in China, in US, in Europe. So they will much expect to this kind of Web 3.0 facility to help them find a buyer or licensee in Europe. Okay.
I know what you mean. You mean in China will have some restrict, but in Europe maybe not too restrict in the communication in the Web 3.0 if the future about the IP exchange. Thank you for your answer, and it is a meaningful webinar about the IP exchange because I studied the information science and I think it is a really meaningful about the China.
Yeah, if you can resolve the language issue, I think that's a very promising business model. Okay, so what the next question?
The next question I have is from Marina, who is going to read it herself.
Hello, Professor. Thank you very much for this presentation. I have a question about a graph you showed before about the IPI pledge. I saw there was a drop in 2016, so I was wondering why was that drop? Is it because a strengthening of banking regulations, or is it economic related, macroeconomic related? It's just some curiosity I have.
That's a very interesting question, Maria. The right question actually should be, what happened after it dropped off? Okay, like every IP monetization model trying, because this is really the root cause, it's government driven. You need to apply different mindset in China, even for this kind of IP new business model, IP pledge. On the private side, it's very hard to implement. But the Chinese government thinks that's the important thing. So they pull very hard in the first few years, right? And thought that's going to success. However, when they set loose a little bit that year, you see what happened. And well, of course, people start to review and understand why. Okay, the year we spent in the past few years thought the trend is going up. But when we reduce the subsidies, or reduce the effort, it will come back to the market-driven force, right? Drop back. But it's so important, then we decide to put in more effort to pull it up, and for a longer term, continue to develop this kind of new business model. So thank you for asking, because it's explained very well. Well, in China, this is what's happening, right? Many new models, many new technologies driven by technologies, by government lead instead of from the private side directly. So thank you for that question.
Thank you very much for your explanation.
Thank you. And then I have a question from Guan, who did not specify whether they want me to read it or not. Okay, I'll read it then. He said okay, thank you. He says they say I can read it. Thank you for showing one of the pillars to drive innovation in China. IP monetization is important to drive people to innovate. What kind of innovative methods are used in innovative groups throughout China? So, and this is one question. He has multiple questions for you, sorry.
Okay.
So, are there significant differences in collaborations to drive creativity and therefore leading to more innovations? And final and third question, are there any differences in facilities that are used to drive innovations?
Okay, this is actually is a very deep question. Look how I may answer. There are three questions, but let me to give these three questions with one holistic view. Okay, I think not only in China, every country when they innovate, they copy. Like in US, when I studied in MIT, the professor mentioned that like 150 years ago, when US Civil War is that 10 times the British, right? One of the reasons is that US, the immigrant into US, they are taking the drawing or technology drawing, or even ship the whole machine of steam engine into the United States. And a lot of patent dispute between these two countries, which eventually lead into war. And at the very beginning, I think that happened in China too. People are not afraid to meet that point. I think every children, when I learn new stuff, they try to observe what's happening in the environment, and then we'll see what the other people doing that, practice a little bit. But when they doing enough, they will start to come up with new idea. Okay, so that's what I see happen in China. Many of the company, especially in the coast area, they used to do OEM, ODM for European company, for like Italian company, give the design to the manufacturer in China, then ship back to Europe. They have been pretty long time. And during the past probably 20 years, some of the people violate the intellectual property protection. They will probably ship some of those goods back into China, or they try to have something similar and sell that into other countries. That's why China had been receiving so much criticism in the past probably a couple of decades. However, I need to tell you, in the past probably few years, when those practitioners doing this every day, they start to think, okay, I can do some adjustment. I can do some modification to the design, either to the technology or to those art design, and come up with their own model. At the very beginning, this is still infringed. So if you start a patent, if you study copyright or trademark, you understand minor alternation, you still infringing others' patent or IP, right? But when these alternation become more significant in human society, you think that's invention, right? If you heard about the old story says there's no fresh things under the sun, right? Every invention is based on other people's invention. That's, I think, also the basic idea of patent law. If your alternation is significant enough, then the government will grant you a patent right. And from my observation, that is happening in China. The alternation and modification is so significant. Now, many enterprises in China start to create their own new technology, their new design, their new IP. I'm not saying it has achieved this like 100%, but I see the trend, I see the change. And that is how innovation activity is happening in China. Different from, let me take Boston, MIT and Harvard as an example. It's a different society, different mentality. I see a lot of researchers, scientists in Boston area. They spend a lot of time every day doing their fundamental research, because in Boston, in their heart, they believe someday their achievement will be rewarded, because they have huge confidence, they have huge confidence in the system. And no matter, even if they fail, they would not suffer from their life. They will not become the poorest. They could still live in a pretty decent life. So I think in bottom of their mind, they can focus on their research and develop something genuine breakthrough technology. In China, the rapid period of economic development just happening. So people probably couldn't so calm down like their counterpart in Boston, in Silicon Valley. People tend to get more like immediately feedback, financial reward of their innovative activity. So at this stage, what we will see is a lot of innovation activity in China, but they probably not so fundamental. I would say it's a little bit not so deep, like what happened in US or in Europe. Okay, so that's basically the overall situation, but in particular area, just like I mentioned at the very beginning, AI, big data, and quantum computing, 5G or even 6G telecommunication. For particular reasons, Chinese enterprise has occupied very advantageous IP standpoint globally. If you look at their patent pool in those areas, they are really innovators. They are not copying everybody, they are leading. That's why US have this confrontation. They challenge Huawei because China used to be copied. Huawei had been sued several times in the past, I think 20 years, but they come up with something new with 5G, even 6G, that is threatening the existing or previous global norm. And from my point of view, that is the root cause of the trade war. Valeria.
Thank you. We have one final question before we will be launching also a poll for the European Guanxi newsletter. But let me ask the last question first. So Yan Zhou asks me to read this question, which is how to understand the securitization of IP in China. Thank you.
How to understand the situation of IP in China?
Yeah, this securitization, I think.
Oh, securitization. Okay, that's another interesting topic. And it needs another 1 hour. But a quick and dirty way is just look at our website. We have like 3 or 5 articles dedicated to the IP securitization in China. We even have a computer animation showing each step of IP securitization taking place in China. So thank you for asking the question. I invite you to visit our website to see the video. And it's a big thing. I can say 3 things about securitization in China, but very quickly, okay? Securitization of IP used to take place in European, in UK first, in musical industry, entertainment industry. But suddenly it disappeared in the financial crisis in 2008. But interestingly, China picked up like 2 years ago, and suddenly become like 1 billion business in China. And at this particular moment when we speak, Chinese government still try very hard to put in more resource and encourage new business models such as IP securitization. And we have a group of students from university in China. We meet regularly to discuss the current deal, innovation, and the structural innovation of those IP securitization. So it's a very dynamic, very advanced, and very interesting area in China, and not happen in any place of the rest of the world. It just happened in China. Very interesting phenomenon.
Okay, I see that the link has been shared in the chat. If somebody wants to read the article, which we encourage actually to read these articles because it's a very interesting topic, and personally I really think is not discussed enough in the academia, but also in news, in media. And first of all, let me thank you once again for this really interesting webinar. and for your speech. Really, really, thank you so much. And before we close, because unfortunately we are running out of time, I'm asking to launch the poll that is going to be used, thank you so much, in the newsletter. And as just a logistics note, I'm asking the speaker and if his team, if he wants, to stay with us at the end of the webinar, because we are going to discuss some internal issues. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And you're very welcome to join me into the LinkedIn as friend. We can carry on the discussion going forward if you are interested in those topics. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. The poll shows that yeah, we are already really happy with the STAR market and how it's going, and I'm yeah, I think it's going to have a really positive effect over the Chinese tech industry. And on this note, I think I'll just thank everybody for their attendance. Thank you so much for being here with us, for me, from the webinars team, from whole European Guanxi. And stay tuned, because next week we are going to have another really interesting webinar. And thank you so much once again.
Wonderful. Thank you. Bye bye. 再见.